Hello, I'm James Toy, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for KCRAR. You're about to watch one of our candidate interviews, an unfiltered, front row look at how those seeking office approach the issues that shape private property rights and the real estate industry as a whole. We share these conversations publicly so you can hear directly from the candidates, understand their positions in their words, and cast your vote with confidence.
Well, hey, really appreciate you making some time with us, especially on a Friday at 3:30, no less. I know it's not usually the most convenient time for most people, so I appreciate you committing a little bit of your day. Again, I'm James Toy. I'm the SVP of Government Affairs for the Kansas City Regional Association of Realtors, and I'm joined by my friend Jeff Carson. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, Commissioner Ashcraft. We've met at a few things, but typically they're at large party events. So go ahead and introduce myself again. I'm the Director of Realtor Advocacy here at KCRAR, but I'm also a practicing realtor.
Oh, Nice to meet you again.
Mhm.
Uh, you, I may have to make a few adjustments because Jeff, you come across real loud, and James comes across real soft. Okay.
That's pretty much the way it is in real life. I think you pretty much got us.
It's a fair
Yeah.
assessment.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think your volume is just fine.
Okay.
Well, the joys of technology aside, Commissioner, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, maybe some of your professional and public life background, as well as why you're seeking re-election to Johnson County.
Um, well, I won't go into too deep a history, but I've been in Johnson County since 2000. I came to work for the city of Olathe. I was hired by the previous city manager, Michael Wilkes. I'll suspect that both of you have come across him more than once. He's a very, very good gentleman. He hired me to be, and Michael had quite 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 an imagination, and he hired me to be the organizational effectiveness consultant for the city of Olathe. And where he got that title, I don't know. But I basically was responsible for community development, strategic planning. Uh, I did executive coaching for the executive staff and elected officials, and some organizational development work. I was with the city for about 8 years. And if you are old enough to remember the Great Recession in 2008, the city, and not just Olathe, but businesses and a lot of communities were faced with some economic challenges. So I was one of about 60, oh, 62, 65 people that were uh, basically fired. They called it reduction in force, rifted. It was, I mean, it was rough, but I mean, it was congenial. I understood the reasons, and still have great relationships with Michael Wilkes and all the city of Olathe. But I was one laid off, and when I was laid off, I'd always done consulting. And so I, in the middle of a recession, said, well, I'll just become a consultant and do consulting work. Um, and I was working with an individual, and you may know him, Larry Campbell, a former mayor of Olathe. He and I were trying to coordinate some work together. And people have asked me this question before, and I'll tell you, I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I was fussing about something, and he said, well, you ought to just run for office. And I really had never thought about that, but I kind of looked at the landscape and the next election cycle, and the county commission seat was um, in the books. So I said, I'm going to raise my hand, I'm going to go to the blackboard, and I'm going to try. And so I ran, and I won. And I won. I'm seeking reelection for my fifth term. And I don't know. I'm going to suspect you guys probably checked up on me a little bit, but I will tell you that fiscally, I'm pretty conservative. Okay, always have been. And don't get me wrong, we are blessed in Johnson County, and it is just a fantastic place to live. But in some ways, we're almost we're almost challenged by our own riches. We have so much sometimes. I'm not sure we fully appreciate what we have. And in this day and age, and I suspect both of you gentlemen have seen this, if you are on a fixed income, uh, you wake up January 1st and you owe 1, 3, 5, and there was a period where taxes were going up as much as $20,000 on some homes. That is absolutely a killer. And I have fought against that since I've been on the commission and continue to fight against that. And I don't make any apologies for my one character flaw, and that is I do not like to spend other people's money. So, does that help?
Commissioner, that's excuse me, that's very helpful. It seems like you're someone who really values financial stewardship, so I respect that principle. You talked about how you've been in office for 4 terms now, you're going on your fifth. During that time, have you worked on any major housing initiatives, or maybe you could just speak to your overall involvement in housing policy with Johnson County?
Well, um, housing initiatives are um, really um, they've really come to the forefront within the last, I'll say, 2 years. There, and when you say housing initiatives, um, the, I struggle a little bit because you're a realtor, and when you say housing initiatives, you may think in different terms than I do. But what has come forward in Johnson County basically is to address homelessness, low-income housing, moderate housing, and that's been more in the front burner in the last couple of years, especially as it relates to low income and homeless housing. So, is that what you want to talk about, or are you interested in? Because really, in the county, we don't do, not compared to cities, and I'm sure you know this. We don't do as much development of single family homes or even multifamily home developments. Um, I will tell you that I, I prefer single family homes, but I understand what the market forces are that drives multifamily housing. And while I wish everybody could have their own home, I understand that that goes on. Um, uh, I will tell you, though, that I have historically, and since I've been on the commission, really come to have a deep, abiding concern about the use of TIFs, tax increment financing, for various developments. And quite honestly, TIFing luxury apartments, uh, I struggle with that. And I'm not saying we don't need luxury apartments and can't sell them, but to underwrite that with taxpayer offsets, it's a struggle for me. So, when you say housing, tell me what you're talking about or what you want me to talk about.
No, I appreciate you asking for clarification on that. And I think that you pretty much nailed what we're looking for. I think it's really easy to look at a realtor association and think that we are primarily concerned with the buying and selling of market rate homes, but truly we care about the entire gambit of housing policy, whether it's homeless rapid rehousing to short-term rentals to attainable to middle market rate. We really care about the entire because it's global, right? It all feeds into each other, it all impacts the market overall. So really
Sure.
just anything that perhaps you directly worked on, whether it is related to the homeless rehousing or whether it is attainable housing, infill development, ADUs. Really, there's no wrong answer here when it comes to housing policy, nothing overly specific.
Okay.
Could I ask a little bit about your heartburn with the TIFs? Do you think that there's sometimes they're a necessary evil to attract the development, or do you think they would come there regardless of whether they were there? Do you think they would relocate to Lee Summit or another like community?
Well, fundamentally, I don't have a problem with the concept of TIFs. And you if you know this, just tell me to shut up.
No,
Okay.
you're fine.
But the history of TIFs started in California in the 70s. I'm sure you are familiar with some of the history there. And they used it to attack brownfield development, okay? Pieces of property that otherwise couldn't or wouldn't be um, improved to their best value.
Mhm.
That concept that makes sense, okay. But what has emerged, and I mean this is 50 years later, or nearly 50 years later, is that and I don't necessarily fault the development community because they're smart. They have seen ways to use TIFs in order to improve their profits and improve their product, and that's fine, but at the expense of taxpayers or potential taxpayer revenues. And the way the statutes are written, it's basically all or nothing. And as a developer, I get that. But when we have a city, and the county does very few TIFs, but when a city comes
Correct.
forward, and the one that set me off, and this was like 10 years ago, and I think it was in Leawood. They brought forward a TIF, and one of the components of the TIF was to TIF the Alaskan Fur Company, high-end furs, animal furs. And I just like, of all the businesses out there, is that the one that needs to have a tax offset? And it wasn't on a brown field; it was on green fields in Leawood.
Right.
Okay, this isn't like Timbuktu in Western Kansas. And
Right.
if you're from Western Kansas, I don't mean to be disparaging, but it's just like that is a real struggle. And since then, I've seen TIFs for Starbucks restaurants. It's just like Starbucks. I mean, you have to give them a TIF. I, so I struggle with that.
I completely understand. I just appreciate your perspective, and please know, as much blighted area that Leawood has, they seem to be doing something right.
Yeah, I'm sure they have blighted areas, but
No. And their definition of blighted area compared to other communities is certainly different. That's for sure.
yeah,
In a landlocked area like Leawood, and full disclosure, I'm from Wyandotte County, and so living out there by the Speedway, I've seen TIFs, I've seen star bonds. I mean, we've kind of run the gamut on these types of economic programs.
sure, and as a mechanism, I think they have utility and can have utility, but they have morphed from their original concept. And when development comes forward, what just absolutely drives me nuts is, and you probably know the law better than I do, the county commission can only vote down on the development district, not the actual development. And so I ask, so what's the cost benefit analysis? Because are you going to put properties in there that are going to have an impact on mental health services, on MedEx services, on county supported services, and the county is not going to get any tax support for that for 20 years of the initial development, and then additional 20 after each project. So that could be as long as 40 years out. And I know that's not common, but there are some that are into the 30-year range now, and it's just like, okay, that has an impact, because when you remove that revenue stream for those developments, then where does it go? Well, the way the system is currently rigged, it goes on homeowners. Okay, homeowners to me have less leverage in the development system and the judicial, legal, political system than I would think their numbers and their concerns represent. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just
Makes perfect sense. I appreciate it. And by the way, I attend your meetings virtually every week and a half for years. So
oh,
I've heard you make this argument and ask those questions many times.
and unfortunately, the answers are never satisfying. Sorry to say, for me.
Thank you. I get you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, we've talked a little bit about residential and commercial development. Just from your personal perspective, is there a certain direction you would like to see the county go in? And maybe a more specific question is, are there any kinds of industries you would like to see be drawn into Johnson County?
Well, I'd have to think about that some, and I might give you a different response. But I would suggest for the long-term health of any community, there should be a diverse and flexible environment, not be dependent upon one industry. And I, I think Johnson County probably does a pretty good job at that. And as I'm talking, I would say I used to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, big oil industry. And when I lived there, they diversified quite a bit, but heavily dependent upon oil. And this was in the 80s
Right.
when it crashed. And I mean, that really just sucked the life out of Tulsa. And in
And
addition,
Bartlesville as well.
yeah, Bortles, I mean, well,
Yeah,
all of
all of Oklahoma.
Oklahoma and
Yeah.
Texas, Louisiana. Yeah.
You were
So,
buying lake homes at Grand Lake for pennies on the dollar
yeah.
when the oil boom.
Yeah. So, I would advocate generally. Um, I mean, are you thinking of something in particular? I'll tell you at this point, and I could change my mind, okay? But at this point, I tend to have the same reservations about data centers in Johnson County. And not that data centers are inherently bad, but the economics on the power grid, especially, and somewhat on the water system, but the power grid, that's a significant component. And I have not seen the analysis of that. Now, flip side, personally, I am very, I'll say in general terms, very comfortable with the development and redevelopment of nuclear energy. And I don't mean the big 3 Mile Island dome, but the 21st century technology of the microprocessors, nuclear processors, looks very promising, very safe comparatively, and I'd like to see that developed. Not that I want it everywhere, but I think that would help not just this region, but I think it would help the whole Midwest grid. But I'm just talking.
No, I appreciate your perspective and to answer the question that you had kind of dropped in there a little early in your commentary. No, we're certainly not looking for any particular industry or advocating for any kind of sector of the economy to come into Johnson County. We just kind of want to get a sense of maybe what your thoughts were on that. But that's interesting that you gravitated towards nuclear energy. I can't say I've heard that brought up in conversations for Johnson County recently.
Right. Well, there were a couple of events talked about. There was a preliminary proposal to consider one of 5 sites for a micro. Uh, it's a saline-based micro nuclear plant, and it's got some fancy name. And one of the potential areas was in DeSoto. Okay, and so DeSoto and the county confirmed that, and I supportive of that to be considered for that development. That was gosh, I think that was last year. I don't think it was. Yeah, I mean,
It hasn't been a long time ago, but
no,
it's been within the last 12 months or so.
yeah, and it, it's gone into the black hole of
Hmm.
bureaucratic decision making on whoever does it. So, but that to me is worth considering, and I definitely would like to learn more. And um, gosh, James, before you asked your question, I had another thought, but it'll come to me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to knock the train off the tracks, so to
No,
speak.
no, that's all right. You're good.
But no, that I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that. I will say I've not heard that one previously, but certainly something to keep an eye on. Jeff, do you want to maybe
Just
talk a
one,
little bit about infrastructure?
yeah. So, I mean, within the county, what role do you think that your role as a commissioner plays in infrastructure? I know you're in attending your meetings every week. We always talk about water, sewage systems, things like that. What role do you think commission plays, and or what skill set do you bring to the table on those types of issues?
Um, okay, infrastructure has several components, um, and what the county doesn't do, which I really would like to see us do more of or get involved in, is in terms of infrastructure, relates to the street and road system.
Hmm.
Every and now the county does the unincorporated areas, okay, and we do the
Right.
CARS program, and we feed a little bit into the cities. The cities drive what projects they want, which makes sense to a certain degree, but I've proposed this repeatedly, and I will tell you now, under transition in terms of the public works director. Uh, when Mac was there, and then Brian Pedic, particularly with Brian, one of the things that I had advocated was, why doesn't the county take more of a uh, leadership role like it does with stormwater?
Hmm.
Bring these cities together, because we're locked into spending money on building roads and bridges, which is good and necessary. But if you look at of the state of the technology now, particularly out of um, Pittsburgh, University of Pennsylvania, or is it Pittsburgh State University, and Minnesota, University of Minnesota, they are pioneering efforts to use AI to enhance traffic flow. The studies, if you look at the literature, and the studies indicate that current systems, now this is nationally, I don't know what it is in Johnson County, but nationally, um, you could increase the capacity of the current system. This is urban system, okay, not interstate. Urban systems, anywhere from 25 to 40% with the effective use of AI. Basically, when you pull up at a stoplight and there's nobody coming, it shouldn't have to cycle through. Okay, it should be able to track your vehicle and traffic flow, and to use that money, and it has to be in an area. It can't be just one intersection.
Sure.
But working with cities, and there have been some very light conversations on that, but even getting neighboring cities to coordinate the timing of the existing linear system. I mean, that's been a big deal. It's somewhat successful, but to actually use AI to track. Now, you get into all sorts of, privacy issues and the overreach of law enforcement, and I get that, but to look at the technology and try to get the cities thinking that way, uh, to try to get more out of the existing infrastructure rather than building another lane. And I think this is probably pretty well known. It's absolutely hilarious in California. Their strategy was to build lane after lane after lane. And for the first year or so, traffic increased or traffic improved. But then as people realized, oh, well, the traffic's improved, more cars came, and it got worse and worse. And it's like you just can't build enough lanes. And um, I wish the state of Kansas and the city of Overland Park well with their toll lane. I hope that works.
I went straight to 69 Highway when you were having this discussion because I go down to Pittsburgh, Kansas quite a bit, and I'm always on that.
Yeah, yeah. But uh, to build more infrastructure, I mean, it's expensive. If it's needed, great. But what are the other options out there? Have we explored them and exhausted them? Is it faster, better, cheaper to use an AI model? And even mentioning AI in this day and age sometimes forces people into hysterics. And I get
Sure.
AI can be scary,
Depends
but
on your audience.
yeah, it has uses. So
But infrastructure also could, I mean, it is public safety. It is, in Johnson County's world, medevac. And so there are a lot of different things that go into infrastructure when we talk about it.
yeah, well, and I was going to mention I was a big advocate of the transition from jurisdiction based stormwater management to um, um, I want to say river flow. Um, oh gosh, what do you call the the water? I'm sorry. There's a term there that 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 the management of stormwater should be based upon the
Yeah.
alluvial flow of water rather than political jurisdictions. Uh,
Okay. Yeah. So like the impact or the consumption.
well, the management of stormwater projects, they have historically been done by cities rather than the streamway that the water flows
That
in.
that at the end of the line inherits.
Right.
Right.
And the, the obvious challenge of that, and if you guys have been here since longer than I have, you'll know that during the 90s there were some horrific floods in northeast Johnson County. And what the initial tendency was to try to fix it where the flooding occurred. And as we all know, water flows downhill. And so I have advocated for, and staff is generally supportive of, how do we make improvements upstream so that water doesn't cascade downstream? Wouldn't that be more cost beneficial and Olathe is kind of the high spot in the county, um, to have development support that keeps water from running off. Have permeable pavements, have more traditional detention
Yeah.
ponds, those kinds, rather than trying to funnel it, channel it, so it goes through. And the attitude kind of is, well, we just dump it into Missouri, into Kansas City, Missouri, and don't worry about it. And it's just like, that doesn't necessarily work. And
Sure.
I'm being a little bit silly, but that's the challenge.
Yeah. It makes sense. Thank you.
It does. I feel like you're almost in the orbit of a water management district, maybe something akin to that, but that's an interesting approach versus doing it by municipality. Commissioner, I want to wrap us up here with one final question, and the question is simply, what is your message to realtors when they go to the ballot box, they see your name on that ballot? Why should they check the box for you?
Well, I don't know that I have a message to realtors, but or a singular message to realtors. But I'll tell you what I tell people all the time. Um, we are blessed in Johnson County. Uh, we are almost blessed with too many riches. And the cost of government should be concerned. And we should be looking at how we make government services as value added as possible before we ever even hint at increasing taxes. And when I say increasing taxes, I don't mean just the mill levy. I'm talking about the value of properties. I tell people, I want the value of your home to go up, but you need elected officials that will say no to every good bureaucratic special interest idea. If it does not produce value, then why are we doing it? And I would say that's applicable to realtors generally, but I don't know if that's really addresses realtors in particular, other than to maybe say that would make Johnson County more attractive to homeowners because they don't have to worry about an ever increasing income tax, property tax increase. And I, I think that would make us even more competitive in the region.
Well, I think that well-maintained property tax rates is certainly a great selling point to potential buyers. So I think that is more than an adequate answer, and I appreciate that. And Commissioner, very much appreciate your time this afternoon and your professionalism. It's always interesting to hear your perspectives. And if you don't have any questions for us, we're all good on our end, I believe.
Well, just a couple.
Sure.
So, who's going to see this?
So how we do it was we typically, and of course, if you have any concerns, we're happy to oblige any requests you make. We have a YouTube channel that we place these interviews on. It's largely watched by our members. We don't do any kind of serious public promotions, but it's an easy way for our realtor members to be able to view these interviews and kind of see who we're talking to, what their responses are to the issues of the day, and make sure everyone's kept apprised of what we're doing.
And we have obviously a large number of our members are from Johnson County. Now, whether they're within your district or not, I don't know. I'd have to pull those numbers, which we certainly can. But just on behalf of somebody who watches your meetings every week, appreciate all that you do. I mean, Johnson County is a great place, and that's why so many of our customers that come to the area want to look at Johnson County first when they start their home search.
Sure. So, a couple more questions though. So, you put it on a YouTube channel, and that's fine. Will it be in its entirety, or will you be doing any editing?
It will be in its entirety. The only thing we may edit is the first 30 seconds where it's maybe just you on the camera, kind of awkwardly by yourself. We don't want to have that
Yeah,
presentation, but the second
just the
that we
intro
are,
kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we cut the before when people are just hopping on.
Okay, because context is king, and somebody can pick up the film and do odd things with
Right.
it. As long as you put the whole thing out there,
Yep.
then you're covered, and it'll be what it'll be. So,
The good, the bad, the
Right.
ugly is all
No
there.
selective edits, and I'm certainly not a videographer or editor by trade, so I don't even think I could if I wanted to.
Right. Neither one of us have those skills, that's for sure.
very good. Well, send me the link once you post it, if you would. And
Absolutely.
I think we'll be good.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
All right,
All right.
Commissioner, thank you very
Have a
much, and
great
thank you for
weekend.
everything you do for Johnson County.
Very good. Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care.